And that's you now. Go.
Kia ora, I'm Cam. I just want to clarify, I'm making a submission as an individual. My views do not represent any ministries I work with, and any opinions, including political ones, are my own, and my work in the public service has no connection to the topic we're discussing today.
Thank you.
My overall position is tentative support of the bill. I support the overall intent of better regulation that's risk proportionate, and use of GE outside the lab. I have concerns about some of the details that will not promote proper investment and management of GE. Gene technology is a powerful tool, and I think it's useful for future generations to have more tools available since we're inheriting a polycrisis. There are valid concerns about GE, and there have been misuse. Over 2 decades of research since our last major discussion on this topic has shown that those concerns arise from business practices and poor use, not inherent risks of the technology. The scientific consensus on the safety of GE relative to other biotechnology methods commonly used, and our regulation should be risk proportionate and evidence-based. The challenge we face is developing a social license that invests in uses that will deliver benefits that are tangible to the consumer and the community, and our settings in regulation need to allow that to be promoted. Attitudes to GE are changing, and the challenges we face are growing greater. I think it's unwise for us to not allow GE to be developed further. The main points in my submission I'd like to draw your attention to is my recommendation that we add an assessment to the benefits of GE in the decision-making process, that decision-making powers are granted to the Maori Advisory Group, and that reviewing the appropriateness of the General Policy Direction Clause, section 111.1b, and instead incorporating written policy directions on what we want GE to be achieving. Is there any questions about my submission?
Yes.
Great submission, Cam. Thank you. Good to see you here in person. You were concerned about the removal of the precautionary principle, and that you say it's not actually reserved because it's in the Convention on Biodiversity. Actually, that wasn't what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about point C you made was the consumer, connected community, and farmer typically carry the perceived risk of a GE product, but then they do not often get the potential benefits of it. So you're asking that benefits are taken into account because that enables the regulator to assess whether the risk is worth taking because of the perceived benefit. Can you expand on the importance of assessing benefits thoroughly?
So a big issue we've seen with GE is that when quite large corporations have used it, they've introduced a cost of production or to introduce business models that incentivize a bit perverse in the model. And I think it's natural for people to be skeptical of GE. It is the idea of someone manipulating nature, manipulating, playing God. And when you are told that this is safe, this is good, but there's no tangible benefit to you, you don't see the results. You just hear that it's now cheaper to grow this product, or it's going to be easier for farmers to do it. I think you're less willing to accept it. But when we've seen methods that deliver a benefit to consumers, such as the product is more nutritious, or that the cost of the product is reduced, or that it's helping address a disease or disorder that's affecting people, I think they're more willing to accept it. Sorry, was there something as part of your question I might not?
No, that's good. That's a good explanation. So, because currently the proposed legislation will only evaluate risks, but it won't actually assess benefits. So that there's potential that there could be a corporate introducing a genetically modified thing that increases herbicide use, so it benefits them, but it doesn't benefit the public. And you're saying that that assessment to ensure that things are for the public good, benefits should be taken into account as part of the assessment.
Yes, and I think how you prioritize what we pass, benefits are helpful for that. And when we only assess on risk, you can have 2 products that might have the same risk, but our willingness to accept it will differ on the benefit it has. So the COVID vaccine would be a good example. We expedited its use and got it out quicker because the benefit of it is we were responding to a pandemic and needed something instantly. But I wouldn't want every single vaccine to go through that same expedited process. If you only judged a risk, that could be logically done. We also have to consider things like the world is changing rapidly. We see increased risk of disease spreading, especially with climate change. And when horticulture is hit, it's hit quite quick. If you have benefits as part of the assessment, such as a new virus being introduced into our industry, you could then expedite that specific response over techniques which are more about long-term adaptation.
Thank you. We're at time now. Thank you very much for coming here today and presenting to us.
Thank you.
Okay. I actually really liked Cam's recommendation to have transparency around who benefits from the type of tech that's being proposed. What did you think of his point?
Yeah, I think so you got to revert back to in the other act that sort of at the moment how it's governed at the moment. So you have to do that when you're evaluating any gene tech product. So you're evaluating is there anything in the marketplace that's similar without it being GE, and just got to remember that the submitter's coming from a position where he's suggesting and so the preponderance of evidence tells us that we actually haven't, there's nothing there sitting in this whole plethora of things that they've been editing, and probably 90% of the breeding work that's been done in New Zealand in the last 30 years has been with gene editing. So if you looked at the human man hours that have been spent, they've got one ryegrass, one clover, a couple of endophyte vaccines that they're working on, and something else. Another high energy grass, which is not a lot for all of that work. But if you were looking at what already exists naturally, there's hundreds of things. And if the research had been split 50-50 between GE and natural breeding, we probably would have had quite a lot more stuff. The evaluating of the benefits, what we've seen with the industry is it over exaggerates the benefits, because when it goes to testing, none of them manifest. And so, and that can carry through a poor regulator that doesn't test it. And then we see the actual patented product that's been sold as a startup ends up on the market and nobody picks it up and runs with it. And that's why there's very, very few gene edit products in all sorts of different regulations or regulatory frameworks. So I understand what he's saying. And even when he's talking about disease, it's like, I think that we are in the highest risk of total crop loss and major export losses with the way that farming's gone because of the patent system. And we've just seen that with one of the biggest cherry farmers, the cherry price drops. He's basically monopolized the cherry market. He sells the cherry pickers and he's done everything, and he's got 4 massive farms. Price drops, he goes broke, he owes $90 million. That's the end of that. But it happened with kiwi fruit. We all decided we wanted to grow kiwi fruit. 6 big players got into it and busted. And then the next lot set up, and it's only going to be in this area. And then a virus goes through it and they're all back to back, and it just wiped the whole lot out. So it's sort of like everything that we offer, and just going back. Regenerative farming is nothing new. It's 40 centuries of agriculture. It's just how we used to farm. You don't put cows in the paddock that's going to flood. You have to have a diversity of things. Do you know what I mean? So I hear what he's saying, but you've got to cut to the existent. The problem with this idea is you can't have coexistence, and money spent for innovative product that's actually worth a dime, there's nothing. And so you've got to say, what are we doing this for? And what if we channeled all of that money and put it somewhere else, like in healthcare, or we bought the ferries so that we could cross, because I think even though we're agonizing over this and we want to give it the benefit, I think with the massive PR companies that have been running this, even so far as our Science, Nature, or whatever it is, that's a PR company. They've been extolling the virtues of these things more than if the regulator was put in a situation where he had to extol the virtue. It's almost very close to where the regulator would be actually not only extolling the virtues of it, but also having to manufacture the social license for you and me to eat it. And then that also gives credence to the fact that, well, no government department would do that. So it would probably be better just to get 6 guys from Monsanto to be the regulator, because they're better. You know what I mean? It's like, even if
I know.
That's sort of what we're heading towards in that submission.
I mean, basically what you're describing there is the issues with capitalism. Where's the profit in researching what already exists, plants that you can't slap a patent on, when you can make big bang and big buck off genetic researching? And it doesn't really worry them. It doesn't worry them at all if they make something out of GE. Say they make a pink elephant, and they make the pink elephant company, and our regulator says, yep, you can start growing pink elephants. They just sell the startup for like $500 million. Everybody's happy. There might not even be any pink elephants, but it doesn't matter. We made $500 million. That's all it does.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribe to our Facebook.